The pen felt heavier than it should have in my 70-year-old fingers. "Dad, you're overthinking this." My son Liam leaned across the kitchen table, pointing to the signature line. "It's just a medical form, in case something happens while I'm handling your appointments." Outside my Calgary apartment window, snow swirled against the glass. Inside, the form looked official. Government of Alberta letterhead, medical proxy authorization. Why can't I just tell the doctors myself? "Because you missed 3 appointments last month. Dr. Harris called me worried sick." That stung. I had missed appointments. The new medication made me foggy sometimes, confused about dates. "This just lets me speak for you when you can't speak for yourself," Liam continued. Nothing more. His wife Sandra nodded from across the room. She was sorting through my mail with mechanical precision, bills in one pile, medical notices in another, insurance documents in a third. "Timothy, your dad's right," she said, without looking up. "You need someone reliable handling your healthcare decisions." Timothy, my name. But hearing it from Sandra always felt cold. I picked up the pen. The form was 3 pages long. Legal terminology I didn't fully understand. But Liam was my son, my only son. If I couldn't trust him, who could I trust? I signed on page 2, then page 3. "Perfect," Sandra said, finally looking up. "I'll notarize this and get it filed tomorrow." "You're a notary?" "Became one last month. Comes in handy for these situations." Something about her smile made me uncomfortable, but I pushed the feeling down. Liam folded the papers carefully, put them in his briefcase. "Thanks, Dad. This will make everything so much easier." My debit card stopped working at the worst possible moment. I was at Safeway, trying to buy groceries. The machine kept declining my card. The cashier tried running it 4 times. "I'm sorry, sir. It says to contact your bank." Heat flooded my face. The line behind me was growing. People checking their watches, muttering under their breath. I left my groceries on the counter and walked home empty-handed. At home, I called TD Bank, waited on hold for 20 minutes. "Mr. McAllister? This is Jennifer from Account Services. I see there's been some activity on your account." "Activity? Your son submitted an emergency authorization tied to your medical file. Until the evaluation clears, the account is on protective hold." The words hit me like cold water. "What medical evaluation?" "According to our records, you're being assessed for cognitive impairment. Your son provided documentation from your doctor recommending financial protection during this evaluation period." "What documentation?" "Medical proxy authorization form, filed 3 days ago. It gives your son authority to manage your accounts during periods of mental incapacity." My hands started shaking. "I'm not mentally incapacitated." "Sir, I'm just reading what's on file. You'll need to speak with your son about releasing the freeze." I hung up and immediately called Liam. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" "My bank account is frozen." Silence. Then, "Oh, right. I forgot to mention that. It's just temporary, while we sort out your medical situation." "What medical situation?" "Dad, we talked about this. The missed appointments, the confusion. Your doctor's concerned about your decision-making capacity. But I'm fine. I'm talking to you right now. I know it feels that way, but the medical form you signed gives me authority to protect your finances when you're having episodes." "Episodes? Like forgetting to pay bills, like buying the same groceries 3 times in 1 week." Sandra found 5 identical receipts from Safeway. That was true. I had been confused lately. But frozen bank accounts? How long will it be frozen? "Just until the evaluation is complete. A few weeks at most." "How do I buy food?" "Sandra will handle your groceries. Don't worry about anything. We've got this covered." Sandra's daily visits became my new reality. Always with grocery bags, always with questions that felt like tests. "How are you feeling today, Timothy?" At first, she was helpful. Organized my pills, checked my refrigerator. But slowly, things changed. She'd count my pills twice. Take notes on a small pad. "What are the notes for?" "Medical observations, for your evaluation." The grocery bags got smaller each time. Basic items only. Nothing I wanted. "Could you pick up some coffee? The good kind from Second Cup?" "Coffee isn't good for you right now. Too much caffeine affects cognitive function." "Says who?" "The doctor's recommendations." But I hadn't seen Dr. Harris in 6 weeks. I called his office. "I'm sorry, Mr. McAllister. Your son canceled your appointments. He said you were switching to a geriatric specialist for comprehensive care." "Which specialist?" "Her office will call you." The specialist never called. I called Liam. Voicemail. Called Sandra. Voicemail. That evening, I walked to my neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Wong was 85, sharp as a tack, and had lived in the building longer than anyone. Timothy, you look worried. I told her everything. The form, the frozen accounts, Sandra's daily visits. Mrs. Wong listened without interruption. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Show me the form you signed. I don't have a copy. Red flag number 1. Always keep copies of legal documents. Red flag. Timothy, I've seen this before. My nephew went through the same thing with his son in Vancouver. Financial abuse disguised as medical care. The words made my stomach drop. Financial abuse? Someone gains control of your money by claiming you're incompetent. Then they drain your accounts while you're supposedly being evaluated. But Liam is my son. Family commits more financial abuse than strangers. It's easier to manipulate someone who trusts you. She made tea. We sat in her tiny kitchen while she explained what she'd learned from her nephew's experience. First, they get you to sign something that looks innocent. Medical proxy. Temporary power of attorney. Then, they use it to freeze your assets. Then, they start making withdrawals for medical expenses or care costs. How do you stop it? Prove you're competent, get an independent medical evaluation, document everything, and hope you catch it before they empty your accounts. Sleep had become impossible. By dawn, I knew I had to act. At 6 a.m., I walked to the TD Bank branch on 17th Avenue. I need to see my account statements, everything from the past month. The teller was professional but cautious. Mr. McAllister, I'll need to check with management. 20 minutes later, the branch manager appeared. A woman in her 40s with an exhausted look. Mr. McAllister, I can provide statements, but any changes to the account need approval from your power of attorney. I want to see what's been happening since the freeze. She printed 5 pages. I sat in the lobby and read through each transaction. My pension deposit, $2,047. Automatic withdrawals, rent, utilities, phone, normal. But then I saw them. New withdrawals I'd never authorized. Medical consultation, $500. Cognitive assessment fee, $750. Geriatric care planning, $200. Specialized evaluation, $900. Over $3,300 in medical expenses I'd never incurred for services I'd never received. I walked back to the manager's desk. These withdrawals, who authorized them? She checked her computer. Your son, Liam McAllister, using the medical proxy authorization. All legitimate under the power of attorney. But I never had these services. Her expression changed, became more careful. Mr. McAllister, are you saying these withdrawals are fraudulent? I'm saying I never saw any of these doctors. I see. That's concerning. Let me get you some forms. She handed me a dispute package. Financial elder abuse investigation forms. RCMP contact information. If you believe. These withdrawals are unauthorized. We need to start a formal investigation. But I have to warn you, this will become a legal matter between you and your son. Walking home, I felt sick. My own son, stealing from me while pretending to protect me. By the time I decided to call Liam, my hands had stopped shaking. Dad, how are you feeling? I went to the bank today. Long silence. Oh, okay. What did they tell you? That you've been making withdrawals for medical services I never received. Dad, you're confused again. Remember? Dr. Singh's consultations, the cognitive assessments. We talked about this. When did I see Dr. Singh? Last Tuesday, and the Thursday before that. I was never out of my apartment last Tuesday. Mrs. Wong saw me in the hallway all afternoon. Another silence. Dad, you're having memory issues. That's exactly why we need these protections in place. Then show me the receipts. From Dr. Singh. From the assessments. The receipts are with our insurance claims. Sandra handles all that paperwork. I want to see them. Dad, you're getting agitated. This is exactly the kind of episode Dr. Singh warned us about. I'm coming over. He hung up. I called Mrs. Wong. Can you come over? I may need a witness. Liam arrived an hour later, with Sandra. Both of them looked tense. Dad, we need to talk. We sat in my living room. Mrs. Wong positioned herself in the corner, quietly knitting. This is awkward with your neighbor here. She stays. Sandra spoke for the first time. Timothy, Liam and I are concerned about your accusations. You're becoming paranoid, suspicious of people trying to help you. Show me the receipts from Dr. Singh. Sandra opened her purse, pulled out a manila folder. Inside were carbon copy receipts. Professional looking. Dr. Victoria Singh, geriatric specialist. But something was wrong with them. These receipts are all dated on Tuesdays, but you said I saw her twice, Tuesday and Thursday. Sandra glanced at Liam. The Thursday appointment was canceled, rescheduled. To when? We're still coordinating with her office. I studied the receipts carefully. The address was 1247 Kensington Road. I knew that area. The name, Dr. Victoria Singh. Mrs. Wong, do you know where 1247 Kensington Road is? She looked up from her knitting. That's the strip mall with the Tim Hortons. No medical offices there, just retail shops. Sandra's face went white. The same strip mall had been there for years, but I'd never really looked at it until now. After Liam and Sandra left, hastily making excuses about dinner plans, Mrs. Wong and I walked to Kensington Road. 1247 was indeed a strip mall, Tim Hortons, hair salon, cell phone repair shop, Subway restaurant, no Dr. Victoria Singh. We asked at each business. No one had heard of a Dr. Singh. No medical office had ever operated in the building. Timothy, those receipts are fake. We walked home in silence. In my apartment, I called the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. I'm trying to verify a doctor's credentials. Dr. Victoria Singh, geriatric specialist. 1 moment, please. 5 minutes on hold. Sir, we have no Dr. Victoria Singh registered in Alberta. Are you sure about the spelling? I tried. Different spellings, different first names, no results. Dr. Victoria Singh didn't exist. I called the RCMP non-emergency line. I need to report financial fraud. My son has been stealing from my bank account using fake medical receipts. Sir, we'll need to connect you with our economic crime unit. Can you hold? The evidence folder grew thicker each day. Constable Maria Santos from the RCMP came to my apartment. Professional, thorough. Mr. McAllister, what you're describing is a common form of family financial abuse. Someone gains legal authority through deception, then uses that authority to steal. Can you stop it? We need more evidence. Right now, your son has legal power of attorney. The bank withdrawals appear legitimate on paper. We need to prove the medical services were fraudulent. The fake receipts? That's a start. But we need more. Proof that he knew the services were fake. Evidence of intent to defraud. She explained what I needed to do. Call your son. Tell him you want to meet Dr. Singh personally. See what he says. If he makes excuses or tries to avoid it, that's evidence of deception. What if he agrees? Then he'll either have to admit Dr. Singh doesn't exist or find someone to impersonate her. Either way, we'll have our evidence. I called Liam that afternoon. Dad, how are you feeling today? Better. I want to apologize for yesterday. I was confused. That's okay. It's not your fault. I've been thinking I'd like to meet Dr. Singh, to thank her personally for her help. Long pause. Dad, she's very busy. Specialists don't usually meet with family members socially, but I'm her patient. Right, but she prefers to communicate through me, as your medical proxy. Just a quick meeting. Maybe Sandra could arrange it? Let me check her schedule. She might be able to fit in a brief consultation next week. What day? I'll have Sandra call you. Sandra never called. The controlled meeting never happened the way we planned it. Constable Santos had suggested a direct approach. Set up a meeting with Dr. Singh. Have officers nearby. Wait for the truth. I called Liam again. Did Sandra arrange that meeting with Dr. Singh? Still working on it, Dad. Her schedule is packed. Tell her I'll pay privately, whatever her consultation fee is. Dad, that's not necessary. I insist. I want to make sure I'm getting the best care. How much does she charge? I'd have to ask Sandra. She handles all the billing. The receipts show $500 per session. I'm happy to pay that. Actually, Dad, her rates went up. It's $800 now. I almost laughed. He was making up numbers on the spot. Fine, $800, cash. This Friday at 2 p.m. Tell her I'll meet her at her office on Kensington Road. Dad, she moved offices. Didn't I mention that? Where to? Downtown. I'll get you the exact address. Friday came. I sat in Tim Hortons at 1247 Kensington Road with Constable Santos. At the next table, pretending to read the Herald. At 1:45, my phone rang. Dad, I'm so sorry. Dr. Singh had an emergency. She had to cancel. What kind of emergency? Family matter. We'll have to reschedule. When? She's going out of town for a few weeks. Medical conference. I'll call you when she gets back. Constable Santos was listening to every word through a wire I was wearing. After I hung up, she shook her head. That's enough evidence. He's clearly stalling because Dr. Singh doesn't exist. Let's go make some arrests. The handcuffs made a clicking sound I'd never forget. The RCMP arrested Liam and Sandra at their apartment on Saturday morning. I wasn't there, but Constable Santos called with updates. We found extensive evidence of fraud, fake receipts, forged documents, equipment for creating professional invoices. How much did they steal? From your account? about $8,500, but this is part of a larger operation, similar fake receipts for other clients. Other clients? Your son and daughter-in-law were running a sophisticated elder abuse scam. They'd target elderly people with medical concerns, gain power of attorney, then steal money using fake medical expenses. The full scope was staggering. 12 victims, over $150,000 in fraud. How did they find victims? Sandra worked part-time at medical offices. She had access to patient information. They'd target vulnerable people. My chest felt tight. I wasn't their first victim. No, sir. But you might be the one who stops them from creating more. The courtroom looked the same as any other, but everything inside me had changed. I was watching my son plead guilty to fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. The Crown prosecutor recommended 18 months in prison for Liam, 2 years for Sandra, who was considered the ringleader. The judge agreed. This court sees a calculated scheme designed to exploit the most vulnerable members of our society. The breach of trust involved, a son stealing from his father, makes these crimes particularly reprehensible. I testified at the sentencing hearing, not to seek revenge, but to explain the impact. The money was just money, I told the judge, but the betrayal broke something in me that I don't think will ever heal. I raised that boy, paid for his education, supported him through 2 divorces, and he repaid that love by treating me like a mark in a con game. The courtroom was silent when I finished. After sentencing, Liam's lawyer approached me in the hallway. Mr. McAllister, Liam wanted me to give you this. A handwritten letter, 2 pages. I read it that evening in my apartment. Mrs. Wong made tea while I processed the words. The letter was an apology, but also an explanation. Liam and Sandra had been in debt, credit cards, a failed business. We never meant for it to go this far, he wrote. It started as a temporary loan. We were going to pay it back. But then Sandra found more clients, and the money was so easy to access. The letter ended with a plea. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope someday you can understand that I never stopped loving you. Mrs. Wong watched me fold the letter and put it away. Will you visit him in prison? I thought about it. Maybe. Eventually. He's still my son. Even after everything. Family's complicated. Love and betrayal can exist in the same heart. The bank unfroze my accounts. I got most money back through restitution. The fake medical proxy was invalidated by the court. I kept living in my apartment. Mrs. Wong and I became friends. We looked out for each other. I never signed another medical proxy form. When my health declined, I worked directly with my doctors. No intermediaries. No one else speaking for me. When I finally found the courage to visit him at Bowdoin Institution, I didn't know what to expect. We sat in a room full of other families trying to maintain connections across the divide of crime and consequence. Thanks for coming, Dad. You're still my son. I don't deserve that. No, you don't. But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. We talked for an hour. About prison. About my life. About rebuilding trust. When I left, I felt lighter. Not because I'd forgiven him. That would take longer. But because I'd chosen to leave the door open. The dispute packet sat on my kitchen counter for weeks. Sometimes I'd see it there next to Margaret's wedding ring and think about how thin the line is between love and betrayal. How someone can care for you while planning to destroy you. That day, I realized trust isn't a feeling. It's paperwork. It's believing someone when they say, this is temporary. It's signing something because family asks you to. And if someone gets truly offended by caution, that tells me everything.